Christchurch that proudly stood before.
The Honourable Jerry Brown.
Mr Speaker, I might make a few brief comments in response to those who have spoken already. Occasionally in the House you get outstanding speeches delivered by members, and I want to congratulate Aaron Gilmore on his contribution this evening. And I note that it will be something that Hansard refers, or is referred to in Hansard for years to come. It is very, very insightful and incredibly accurate. Mr Speaker, the difficulties that Canterbury have experienced over the last 12 months have been considerable. There's no doubt about that. And I don't know anybody who is living in the Greater Christchurch area at the moment who isn't making some change or concession in their life towards getting the communities that they live in back in operation. Whether it's the way in which they travel around the city, the way in which they conduct their work activities in the city, the way in which they have to make alternative arrangements for their children to get to sport and to other things. You could go on, sir. Enormous amount of extra effort being made by many, many people to get things going. Earlier this year, sir, after the February 22nd event, we established the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Authority, which was a follow-on from the Canterbury Earthquake Recovery Commission, which had much lesser powers, set up after the September event. And I want to say, sir, that in setting up that new government department, the public service in New Zealand was very much to the fore and showing itself to be the best it is. I want to congratulate John Ombler for his initial work in setting up that department and reaffirm the comments made in here about the delight we have in Roger Sutton taking on the Chief Executive role for that organisation. I should mention other names. There are many of them. They're working very, very hard in a very, very focused way and in a collaborative way with all of the districts, Selwyn, Waimakariri and Christchurch, to get a good result in the long term. I want to also mention the order in council process and the wartime powers that Mr Cosgrove regularly suggests that I hold. Those are very, very muted by the processes that we have in place, not the least of which are those around the orders in council, and I want to acknowledge the work that the opposition parties are doing in collaboration with government parties to make sure that that process works well. Mr Speaker, a couple of things I do want to cover in the brief few minutes I've got left. Firstly, we do think that the offer made to the 5,000 households so far, which would see them given the option of leaving those properties at their 2007 valuation, is a fair one. There's no question about that. If you look at all of the valuation data for real estate sales, etc., over a period, that stacks up very, very well. On the issue of temporary accommodation, an announcement is imminent to correct or to, in addition, effectively, to the arrangements that have been put in place so far. I need to make it clear there are only about 80 families so far who've accessed that additional accommodation support because the private insurers have stepped up to make sure that people do get those entitlements in the first instance. On the emergency heating, under the winter heating program, there has so far been over 9,000 installations of heat devices in houses in the Greater Christchurch area. That's Selwyn, Waimakariri and Christchurch, over 9,000. Many of those, much of the bulk of that has been in heat pumps with a smaller number of pellet fires and wood burners. And so the program does continue, but when you put that much in, and it is on an emergency basis, there would be naturally a time when it starts to slow down. Mr Speaker, I think the good things that we can look forward to in Canterbury are that there has been no significant depopulation, no outright collapse of our local economy, and our paymark data and electricity usage confirms both of those things. And I think what that points to is a community that does want to recover, that does have a very strong will to get things back as good as it can be and better. And when it comes to those heritage buildings, all I could say is that if there is an ongoing economic value in those buildings as well as the heritage value, the owners of those buildings are bound to recognise that and to be able to find a solution for their continued survival. Mr Speaker, one of the things that we must make sure is that in the future, both our residences and our places of work, our commercial activities and industrial activities are conducted in safe buildings.
Members, the question is that vote Canterbury earthquake recovery stand part of the schedule. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. Contrary opinion, no. The ayes have it. The question now is that vote commerce stand part of the schedule. Question is that those of that opinion will say aye. Jonathan Young.